We are, and I guess we've got a few people here. We're with our live event here. It is, what is it, the 12th today? 13th? The 13th. It is a Wednesday, the 13th, and we're Life and Law, and we're talking about um, police and searches as it relates to the Fourth Amendment and what they can and can't do. And those of y'all checking in, they can give me questions, talk to me about maybe some issues that you have regarding police searches, police interventions, and what you can do about those, and what you should look out for, and any other thing. If you want to talk about something else that you see on my platform, police will ask you a lot of questions when they come up on you. And most of the questions are geared toward wanting them to take a look around, whether it's in your car, whether it's at your house, or maybe on your person. In fact, I think that's the way the nature of my TikTok was, but it was mostly generated toward the car, but it's all the same. If they're coming to knock on your door, they're going to knock on your door, and the first thing they're going to ask you, if it's your house, they're probably going to ask you if you mind, do you mind if I come inside? That's always never good. First off, they're not knocking on your door to see how you're doing, although there are certain occasions when they'll do a wellness check, what they call a wellness check. If you're very elderly, then, sometimes a police officer will knock on your door because someone has made a call to the police department and worried about your welfare. So sometimes they'll do that. And, they'll knock on the door and, they'll want to see how you're doing. So, but ordinarily, if they're knocking on your door, or if they stop you on the street, and usually they'll ask you, where you going? If you're not in your house, they're going to ask you, where you going? Why are you out so late if you're out late? Or even if you're, what are you into? Where you going? What's your business? They'll ask a lot of those questions. Then they may ask you, looks like maybe you've got something in your pocket. What do you got? Can I take a look in your pocket? But most always it's going to be your house. You don't see a lot of stop and frisk anymore. A lot of cities have outlawed it, where the police officer can stop you and pat you down. That used to be a real popular thing, but then in a lot of these larger cities, police officers got nailed for it appeared, at least the data showed, that more often than not, they were stopping a minority to pat them down. And so they put a stop to that. So normally when you see these kind of questions come up, it's typically maybe in your car at your home. They're going to come up to you, and the first thing they're going to ask you if you're in your car is, do you know why I pulled you over? That should be a clue to everybody. If they're asking you if you know why, that means it probably wasn't for any kind of it could be for speeding, but it's probably not for a DUI. It's probably not for any of those kinds of things. It's probably maybe for a speeding, maybe for a broken tail light or an unexpired tag, what I would call a non-moving violation. So if they ask you that, then they don't have a warrant. That's the big takeaway from that. If they ask you, do you know why I pulled you over? Or if they knock on your door, do you know why I'm here? Which would be the question they'll ask. Do you know why I'm here? Always the answer is no, because you don't know. And if you guess, you could be getting yourself into trouble. I mean, it could be a million reasons. Someone could have told a lie on you that they're showing up and they're wanting to take a look around, but generally that's the way it originates. And when that kind of stuff happens, they're looking to gather evidence. So that's generally the way that originates, is they're going to ask you. And it's always a good idea. And I like the police. When I do this, people, I was a prosecutor for 16 years. So basically at my core, I'm a law and order guy. I do believe that people ought to generally behave themselves. But, you know, that door goes both ways. I believe police officers ought to behave themselves also and follow the law and follow the Constitution. So, you know, I like police officers, but I've seen a lot as a prosecutor, you know, particularly, and also as a criminal defense lawyer, I've seen a lot where police officers go beyond the bounds because they believe whenever they encounter you, whether it's at your home or in a car or on a street, when they stop you, they believe that there's already a crime been committed. And, or maybe not, but maybe you're a suspect and they finally found you. So it's just not ever a pleasant situation when a police officer pulls you over. Anybody that's ever been pulled over in a traffic situation, even though you believe you've done nothing wrong, when you get pulled over, it is an uncomfortable situation. And so the moment they encounter you, they believe that you've done something wrong, and their mission is to prove that you did something wrong. So it's not ever a good idea to volunteer any kind of information.
Okay, do you ever handle bankruptcy cases?
I do. And you know what? When I first started practice, up until about 8 years, I want to say 8 years ago, up until about 4 years ago, I practiced a lot of bankruptcies. I filed, hundreds of bankruptcy cases. And that's one of the things as a lawyer, filing a bankruptcy, for me, I got more enjoyment out of filing a bankruptcy and doing divorces than I did at any other part of my practice. Now, a lot of people would find that odd, but I just loved seeing the relief on people's face when I told them they come into my office for a consultation and I told them I could help them. Because usually when someone comes into your office for a bankruptcy or a divorce, they've waited too long. Like, it's one of those things, and I always say, you should have come into my office 6 months ago. And you just see the relief. It's almost instantaneous when you tell that individual that you can help them with their debt or you can help them lose weight through a divorce.
Mary asks, can they use your cell phone contents against you without a warrant?
No, absolutely not. Never hand over. And that's one of the things they'll do, particularly if you're in your car. You get that cell phone out and they'll ask you, they can lie to you. It is a fact that a police officer can lie to you. They can say anything they want to, anything. So a lot of times what they'll do is, we need your phone for evidence. You have evidence on your phone and we need it. That's bull hockey. If they want your phone, it's like any other thing, any other property that you have that's private to you. They have to get a search warrant unless you give it to them. So, and a lot of people this is kind of a new thing with your phone. I know I keep my insurance documents and my registration, and sometimes even I keep my license on my phone. So if I can't readily find it, maybe I don't have my wallet on me, or the insurance documents aren't where they need to be in the car, I have it on my phone. So a lot of times when you get that, the officer will say something like, can I see your phone? Do not ever relinquish control of your phone. Never. That's your information. They have to get a search warrant if they need it, if they need the information. And they'll tell you, well, you've got information. You're not allowed to film us. All that's a lie. You can film anybody that's out in the public domain that you want. In fact, I encourage people to buy a dash cam. I'm getting ready to try to sell dash cams too. I'm looking into selling dash cams. So get a dash cam or get your phone out. And when a police officer comes up, just film them. It's not against the law. It's a little uncomfortable for you if you're filming them because it does seem awkward, but it's not. You are protecting yourself. They have body cameras. How come you can't have a camera is the way I look at it. So you're protecting yourself. So no, they cannot look at your cell phone unless they get a warrant.
What can you do when a court-appointed attorney works with the prosecutor against you?
It happens in different ways. So You could always file a complaint. And I encourage people, if your lawyer is not working for you, then if it's a court-appointed lawyer, they have supervisors. If you feel that you're not getting what you deserve from your court-appointed attorney or any other attorney, a paid attorney or a court-appointed attorney, and I will tell you that the courts, the bar administrators that regulate lawyers and that govern lawyers in every state come down harder on a lawyer for mistreating. If it's a public defender or a court-appointed lawyer, they come down harder on that individual for misusing or not doing what they need to do by a client. They'll come down harder on that lawyer a lot of times than they will a paid lawyer. Because the standard, let's think about this. If you are in a position to where you need a court-appointed lawyer, then you're more vulnerable than someone that has money. So the court looks at it as though that lawyer is abusing someone that's vulnerable and that needs their help. And so, yeah, I always advise, first off, talk to that person's supervisor, let them know that you feel that you're not getting the treatment you need out of your lawyer, and they will probably send you to somebody else. Now, having said that, a lot of times people think that when these lawyers and go out with the prosecutors and they go out with the other side's lawyer, that they're all chummy and they're conspiring against each other. I've been doing this work for over 24 years. I have been around the legal profession for about 40 years. It is rare that I have seen conduct that I construed as parties conspiring against someone. So just because you see them go out to lunch, just because you see them yucking it up before a hearing, just because you see them hanging out maybe at a club, doesn't necessarily mean that they're talking about your case. In fact, I would argue that they're not talking about your case. Because that's one of the comments I get, looking at my TikTok feed and my Instagram, and even starting to get some comments on YouTube where people believe that. And I absolutely believe that people believe that because they believe what they see. So if their evidence that comes in their heads tells them that their lawyer is hanging out with the prosecutor, that doesn't look good. If you're the guy that has the public defender, it don't look good. But most of the time they might be talking about another case, So I would be really careful about throwing that accusation out there, because sometimes what you see isn't always a fact of, particularly when you're talking about the getting all chummy and conspiring against you. Sometimes it looks that way, and it actually may not be that way.
Do police have to tell you why they pulled you over?
They don't. They can lie to you. They do not have to. They can lie to you. But I will tell you, if they ask you again, they probably have no probable cause to put you to jail. So there's two levels. There's reasonable suspicion to pull you over. Then there's probable cause to take you to jail. There's probable cause. They have to have probable cause to believe that you committed a crime. So they don't have to tell you. Sometimes they will tell you, but I wouldn't believe anything they say. Now, if they tell you, we pulled you over for speeding, then that warrants a ticket. That warrants nothing else other than a ticket. So if they tell you it's for speeding, shut your mouth. Don't volunteer any information. Hand them over the documents. Don't chit-chat. Don't talk. Don't do anything else other than give them the documentation that they request. Don't say anything else. Because if it's speeding, then all they can do is give you a ticket, and that encounter should not last any longer than 15 or 20 minutes.
Do you agree with how laws are written overall?
Yeah, I think we've got the best. And if you look around the world, and if you watch a lot of TV even, I think we have the best criminal justice system. Now, it has a bunch of flaws. There is no mistake about it. But our system and the way our laws are made, I think, are the best in the world. Having said all that, we've certainly got our problems. And I do believe that the poor and minorities, well, I always say it this way. I think it's less of a minority problem than it is a poverty problem. Although minorities have taken for years, they've got reason to believe, every minority has reason to believe that the police is out to get them because it has happened. Now, is it as rampant as some people think? The data doesn't show that. Okay, the statistics, if you just look at statistical data, get the emotions out of the way, it doesn't really say that. Are there problems with policing in the minority communities? Yes, but there's also bad policing in the poor communities. You know, I didn't use a bathroom I didn't use an inside bathroom till I was 16 years old. Lived on food stamps. You can bet your bottom dollar there was people around my little neighborhood that got the treatment from the police every time they come around. And that's because they're poor. They were the usual suspects. They're easy to pick on. They generally can't defend themselves. They have no voice in the courtroom, so it's easy. It's easy. So, but on balance, I like the way our system works on balance as compared to every other place in the world. But, you know, it takes a lawyer to advocate for you to push back whenever there's something that don't look right. Okay? So yeah, I do believe. I think we have one of the best criminal justice systems in the world. That doesn't mean, and we've got a lot of problems about it. It's mostly the disparity with economics and income. I think that's the biggest problem, is access for the poor, good legal access.
Are we allowed to lie to the police?
No, that door only swings open one way. It's the police
Okay.
can lie. You cannot lie. If you lie, they will load you up with something. In most states, it's called obstruction. If you give them a lie, that's why you should never lie about your identity. You should never forge a document. That's a felony in most states. Have your documents handy. Your license, your ID. They're allowed to ask you, in most states, they're allowed to ask you for your name and address. You don't have to speak to them. Give it to them in a document. So, yeah, don't lie to them. If you give them somebody else's name, and they find out later, you're in for a whole lot more trouble than it's worth. It makes no sense to lie to a cop, because sooner or later they're going to find out. And then you got more problems. Don't do that.
Can a traffic cop tell you to stop filming the traffic stop?
Nope. Now, you can't interfere with them. You cannot interfere. If you are sufficiently enough out of the way, or if they are engaging you, you are allowed to film yourself. You're allowed to film them as they participate. Now, once they ask you to leave your car, you do have to leave your car. If you don't leave your car, they're going to pull you out of your car. Or your vehicle. I'll say vehicle, could be a truck. They can say stop all they want to, but that doesn't hold any weight. They're out in the public. You can film them doing their job. You can't get in the way of doing their job. That too is obstruction, and it could load up in some other charges. Just keep your mouth shut, press record, and let it roll.
Do you deal with social workers and taking kids?
If you look on my page, I have a whole lot of videos. And I think, Katie, you've tried to show me how I can do the, what do you call them, a playlist?
Yeah.
I think I might have done it by accident, but I didn't do it on purpose. So I need to try to, I've got a bunch of social worker things on there. And it's just like social workers will pretend that they have a lot more authority than they do. But yes, I've been on both sides of the social worker argument. As a prosecutor, you work with social workers, and I will tell you, as a prosecutor, I have seen more rotten, lazy social workers than I have rotten, lazy police officers. And that is so unfortunate. So yeah, I've been on both sides of that. I've represented clients who got the crappy end of the stick when it comes to a social worker and them taking kids. Some people need to have their kids taken. There's no doubt about it. But most of the time, I think the data somewhere, I said it on TikTok, I can't recall it, but overwhelmingly, it's like 30 or 40% of the complaints filed in the Department of CPS or whatever it is, Child Protective Services or social worker complaints, are unfounded. It's usually a vindictive ex-parent, ex-partner. It's usually a granny, some kind of relation that wants your kid. So they're prone to make these complaints against you, and that social worker comes bird dogging you, and you got to be really careful. I never let them in my house either unless they have a warrant. Now that of course, that all of this advice, listen, I always tell people, I'm a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer necessarily until you pay me to be your lawyer. The information I give you here on any of these topics is generalized, basic information that I know from my experience and my research and education. So generally speaking, social workers, they don't have any authority. And even when they're with a police officer, a lot of times the trick is they'll come with a police officer. And always, if you listen, may we come in? I'm here to tell you, if they have a warrant to enter your home, they will not ask you. They will show you that warrant and they will say, we need to come in. So if they're asking, you can easily say, no, not at this time. I'm not ready. I'm sorry. Give me 2 hours and come back. And then in that 2 hours, contact a lawyer. And if you can't do that, when they come into your house, say as little as possible. Anything you say, just like the police, anything you say or do in front of that social worker can become part of that record. And if they file charges against you and you have to go to court and defend getting your kids back, they're going to pull out everything you did, everything you say. They're going to look at your cabinets. They're going to look at your floors. They're going to look at the dirty clothes hamper. They're going to look at all that stuff. And then you're going to have a problem. Once they enter your home, it's just like the police. Once the police enter your home, anything they see that's in plain view that they construe or that they can determine is some type of criminal activity, oh darn it, what was his name on I Love Lucy? The father. You got some splaining to do. Ricky Ricardo. Yeah. You got some splaining to do if they come in and say something. So listen, keep your house clean and tidy. I always tell you, it don't got to be immaculate, but there ought not be dog crap in the floor. There ought not be dirty diapers in the floor. I'm going back to social workers. The dirty clothes should be a manageable pile. Just don't look like you're living like an animal.
What happens if a defendant refuses to enter a plea in the court of law?
You'll have a trial. It's that simple. You'll just have a trial. If you do not enter a plea, they will set you for trial. And then if it's a criminal case, once they find you guilty, they will haul you off. You don't get 10 days to get your affairs in order. No. On rare occasions, if you have a lawyer, your lawyer can usually get you a few days to come back and turn yourself in. But if it's a very serious crime, your rear end going to go in cuffs right then.
If you're not committing any crime and police question you, should you record the encounter?
I would always record it. But first off, I'd never say anything. If you've not done anything, you have no obligation to talk. If they believe you've done something wrong, the only thing you can do by talking to that police officer without a lawyer is get yourself in trouble or somebody else in trouble. You may say something unknowingly that would get someone else in trouble. So you don't want to do that. If you have been the target, contact a lawyer or say nothing. Say nothing.
Can they pull out the passenger? I'm assuming like the passenger in a car.
Yeah. I did a TikTok on that. Oh, yeah. If you're a passenger, oh, yeah. They can ask you to step out of the car for their safety. Passengers, I tell passengers all the time, you have the same rights as the driver. You have a Fifth Amendment right to shut the hell up. And if that police officer stops your buddy and they're driving, you shut up. You don't say a daggone word. If he wants you to get out, you get out, and you don't have to say anything. You do not have to say anything. So they can pull you out of the car.
Are passengers required to provide ID if the driver is pulled over?
Depends on the state. There's a handful of states that require that you identify yourself. Okay. There are some states that don't. I think there's maybe, I did a TikTok on that. I have a map on one of my reels. I want to say somewhere around 20, 25 states have mandated ID laws. But again, you don't have to say anything. Keep your ID available to you. Keep your insurance documents available to you. Have them every time you get in your car. You should be thinking, where are my papers? Because you never know when you're going to need them. You don't have to say anything. You may have to give an ID, but you don't have to say anything. So check that through your local. Could do a Google search. Do I have to ID myself in Tennessee, in Kentucky? You know, whatever. Google will tell you.
My social worker has been lying in reports and twisting our words. What can I do?
You can talk to your lawyer about that if you have a lawyer. If you don't, you should get a lawyer. If your kids are involved, get a lawyer. Never talk to a social worker unless you record them. You're allowed to record them, or unless you have a witness. I would never talk to a police officer or a social worker, or even my boss that's trying to fire me, unless I recorded the phone call.
Can a defendant remain silent in the court of law?
Yep. If you're in court, you don't have to say a daggone word. You don't have to say nothing. Not one word. You know, you don't have to answer anything. Now, there are some cases, there are some particular types of cases, if you do plead the fifth, in these civil cases mostly. Criminal cases, you do not. You have an absolute right to shut the hell up. Civil cases are a little different. If you don't speak in a civil case, it can be construed that you have something to hide. So I would be really careful, and you could even get sanctioned. If it's a civil case and you don't answer a question, you might actually even get sanctioned by the judge. They can make you answer in a civil case. They can put you in jail in a civil case if you don't answer a question. So you got to be real careful about that. Civil cases, at some level, you're going to have to answer certain things. Criminal cases, you have no obligation at all to answer anything.
If an attorney makes a motion at the beginning of a hearing and the judge rules no one issue but doesn't address another issue, the issue not addressed appealable. Sorry, it's kind of like broken English.
I understand. Yeah. So I think I get it. He's probably asking if the lawyer makes a motion to object to something, maybe a couple of issues, and the judge addresses one and says, no, I'm not going to sustain that, or you're wrong, and then continues on with the hearing. That's why a lawyer's objections have to be clear. And if they're not addressed by the court, the lawyer needs to ask again. If there's an issue the judge didn't rule on, the lawyer needs to make another request about another issue, make the record clear, because only when you appeal, if the lawyer has done their job and they've made a clear record of objections, then those are the things that are appealable. If you do not object, you, in a lot of cases, lose your right to appeal.
Okay, what happens if you refuse to answer the criminal court for a very long time?
They throw you in. Well, Some places, depending on the charge, if you don't respond to a complaint or if you dodge them, if you know there's charges out there, once it comes to trial, they can actually even try you in your absence. There's still some places out there where if you don't appear, they can try you in your absence. Yeah, which is not cool. So you need to be aware. You have to answer. If it's a criminal, you have to at least answer the initial charge. Get you a lawyer, say you're not guilty, and follow through with it. Okay, running is not the best way. So we'll try this again sometime soon, guys. Thank you very much for joining in and participating. This is kind of cool to me. So until next time, we'll see you later.